But anyway, the workday, weather permitting, is Saturday 8 to noon. And then the Valentine's Fellowship on Saturday the 15th, the day after Valentine's Day, it's at noon at the Texas Roadhouse. And if you'd like to go to that, we don't have a program or anything of that nature, but we'll all be there eating together. And you buy your own and you say you love your loved one. And it starts at noon. So if you're going to do it, please sign up so we know exactly how many to tell them are coming. And then be there at about 1:45 so that we can all walk in at the same time. And then in March, there's no service on the first Sunday evening of the month. That's March 1st. March 8th is the 33rd anniversary of the church. And after the morning service, we'll be going down to the City Buffet. And there's no evening service. And if you want to go to the City Buffet, there will be a sign-up sheet. I didn't put it out there yet because I don't want it to get mixed up with the February activities. But we'll have a sign-up sheet for that later on. And then there's a work day on the 14th, and elections are that week. We have to put the chairs up and all that kind of stuff. Don't worry about that. Other than that, there's the Ladies' Aim Fellowship. They just had the one the other day, and then they'll have one on March the 2nd. Also, there will be a Ladies' Fellowship that you might want to go to. I'll get you some more information about it, but I believe it's on March the 14th, and it's up in Breckenridge, north of us a little ways. And I'll get you the information about that and let you know what and all that is there. I have the card at home. And then there's some birthdays and so forth. And our preaching schedule is up there. This Sunday p.m., John is preaching, and Floyd, you're preaching on a Sunday night at the end of the month and all that kind of stuff and all that, on Wednesdays and all that. All right, so here we are on Psalm 74. And I don't have a lot of slides to go through because it's a short psalm, so maybe we can get through it tonight. Psalm 74, it's a mishgal of Asaph, okay? And Asaph could be a guy's name or it could be a title. The meaning of it is the collector. So he could have been the guy in charge of the music program and he collected the songs. And that could have been anybody. It could have been David himself for that matter, but it probably wasn't. Or it could have been his name because Asaph is a name. And Mishgal is an instructive, a didactic poem that instructs us about things. It's going to teach us a lesson. And that's the first thing we need to know about Psalm 74. Now, just off the side here, not necessarily about this psalm, but several of the psalms you will find almost in their entirety, word for word, in other places, like in 1st or 2nd Chronicles, 1st and 2nd Kings, because David said them at a specific event. Then they were recorded there in the Kings and the Chronicles about this is what he said at this event. Then they were later taken and put into the songbook. So you'll see them almost identical. Sometimes it's an abbreviated version or something like that, but that's just something to kind of think about every now and then. All right, so we start here in verse 1 of Psalm 74, and you'll see in blue up here on the wall the main points. First of all, the psalmist, Asaph, asked in human understanding, God, why is it going this way? Now, we don't have the mind of God per se. We don't know all that God is doing. And Asaph, the collector, says, I'm going to start this by asking a question. As a human, I don't understand why this is working this way. We saw that in Psalm 73. It took us 3 weeks to get through that. But in Psalm 73, he's saying, you know, it looks like living for God doesn't pay off, and living for the world, you get ahead. But I know that's not right. Let's analyze that for a while. So he does. Well, here in Psalm 74, he's asking this question. So in verse 1, he says, O God, why hast thou cast us off forever? Why doth thine anger smoke against the sheep of thy pasture? It appears to me, Lord, that you're not happy with us. What's going on? Now, let's look at this in two perspectives. Have you ever done something and you know you did it and we'll use you guys. Guys, you know why your wife is mad at you, and still you go up to her and say, what did I do? And you know what you did. Or there are times when the person's upset with you and you have no clue as to why. It could be either one here. But Asaph says, Lord, things aren't going the way I want them to go, and I'm not sure what's happening. Why have you forsaken us? Now, this is something where Asaph had the spiritual and mental acuity to say this difficulty is a spiritual problem. Now let me just ease all of our minds with something right now. Every problem is a spiritual problem. When you get right down to it. It does not mean that if you're living for God with all your heart, you'll never have any problems. But somewhere in your life or in the lives of those with whom you are in association, there's something amiss spiritually. Now, when will all of that be corrected? In heaven, where every tear will be wiped away and all things will be made new and there'll be no more crying. And up till then, we have to live under the curse of sin. And no matter what we try to do for God, there's people around us that might do something wrong. We might do something wrong. And through direct sin and its consequences, or just simply being under the curse of sin, we're going to experience things that aren't really what we wanted them to be. So Asaph says, Lord, will you cast us off? Is there never going to be an end to this? When will this get taken care of? So in human terms, he's asking, why? Point B, he then asked God, about his people. He says, no, Lord, I want you to remember something here. We're your people. Lord, will you remember us? We're the people, we're the congregation that you purchased a long time ago. Asaph is talking. David is king. Prior to David, there was several centuries, as it were, decades, I'll say. Several decades of the judging going back to Joshua. And before that, there was 40 years in the wilderness with Moses. And before that, they were in Egypt for 430 years. And before that, God made a promise to Abraham. He says, now, God, a long time ago, you purchased us. Does Asaph understand to whom he belongs? All right, let's get another connective here. And I will use, again, the marriage thing, so we can go from husband to wife or wife to husband. Doesn't matter. And we've already asked our spouse, why are you upset? And we may or may not know the answer. But then you ask your spouse, didn't I make a promise to you? Didn't we get married? Aren't we one flesh? Aren't we on the same team? Didn't we make promises? Let's remember who we are and what has been promised. So Asaph says, God, remember your congregation. And you'll see in the word study that I have there in your notes, there's a couple of things that are very interesting. And I've tried to highlight them one way or the other. And I want you to look them up on your own time. Because there are several times when an English word is translated, and it's the same English word, but it was translated from different Hebrew words. So you have to look at the context. The context and the syntax will determine what the meaning is. Okay? Because Hebrew is a very, very loose, poetic type language. And so he says, and congregation could be multitude. The word multitude in English comes from the same Hebrew word. And you'll see that. And several things on your notes, it'll say, look at verse 12, look at verse 4 when you see those kind of things. Remember your congregation, the congregation that you purchased. That congregation, that group of people, is the rod of thine inheritance, which thou hast redeemed. You purchased us, you redeemed us, we're your people. We are look at this, we are not just your inheritance, we're the rod of your inheritance. And that's significant in the culture of that place, that time. I'll use the shepherd as the illustration because we understand that. He has a rod. A better illustration is Judah. Judah goes off to Timnath to see Hiram about the sheep, and on the way he sees a harlot. So he goes in unto the harlot, and when he's all done with the harlot, he says, oh, I forgot my wallet. Here, take my staff, my rod, take my ring, take my necklace, my amulet. They were the identifications of who he was. It's really strange because when he gets to Timnath, to Hiram, he has no authority to purchase or sell anything. He's a stranger with no ID because he gave it all to the harlot, who wasn't a harlot after all. I won't get to that story in Genesis 38. But the staff, if you were the eldest of the family, your staff had your dad's name and your name was under it. And above your dad's name was his dad, and his dad, and his dad. So there was a family lineage carved on it. On your ring, you had the signet that you could push into the wax seal. The signet that when I left, I had your seal. You can't break this. I've got your seal on this. It's like a signature. Okay? The necklace was the identification of, this is all mine. I have the power to sign for it. And here's the staff. If you have any questions, this is who I am. Okay? So that's very important. So it says, we are the rod of God's inheritance. We are the staff. We are identified with Him. And that's very important. We're not just stray dog, stray sheep. No, we are listed in the identification. Okay, we're the rod of His inheritance. Then he says, lift up thy feet unto the perpetual desolations, even all that the enemy hath done wickedly in the sanctuary. Now, where is the wicked doing the damage? Out in the middle of nowhere? No, in the sanctuary. So let's put it in today's terms. These ne'er-do-wells are coming into the church and messing things up. Lord, get on your feet. Do you see this? How long is it going to last? And Asaph is, again, he's looking at it in human terms, human thoughts, human feelings. Is this never going to get taken care of? Does God care at all about this? But we're your people. We're identified with you. And yet these ne'er-do-wells, they're coming into the very church and messing things up. Letter C, point C. Asaph then explains the situation, again, from his point of view. Look what he says here. They are overpowering us. In verse 4, thine enemies, not mine, Asaph says. Oh, they're affecting me. Was Asaph being adversely affected, deleteriously affected by these guys? Yes. But who was the object of their animosity? It was God. It says, your enemies, Lord, they roar in the midst of your people, in the midst of your congregation. They set up their ensigns for signs. Now, the word ensign and sign are the same two words in Hebrew. Okay? So you look at the context. They're setting up their symbols, their marching symbols, as the signs instead of what we hold up. So, again, we'll just use an illustration. It's nothing official. But over here we've got our statement of faith basically broken down. Over here we've got the 10 Commandments written down. And somebody comes in and says, I don't believe it. And he's got a placard, I believe in human rights and yada, yada. And they're filling the church. He's saying, something's not balancing out here. They're overpowering us. Subpoint 2. They are destroying what God's people built. Now, you look around, again, just illustratively, we have 10 acres and a couple of buildings and all that kind of stuff. And who built this? Well, it's God's church and all that, but in the human aspect, who put their blood, sweat, and tears into this place, and their money into this place, and their time? Us. We did. Don't take that wrong. This is God's house. Okay? I was talking to a fellow just Monday at the preacher's convention. I said, unfortunately, people don't think this way, but they should. And this is how you ought to think. When the offering plate is passed and you put money in it, it ain't yours no more. Not at all. Now, I've been working in the ministry all my life, but from the time I was thinking about this today, I started working in a church when I was 7. My job was to clean toilets, buff floors, and cut grass for the great whopping salary of $0. A couple years later, they gave me $5 a week. And that's what I grew up doing. But from the time they started paying me, what's 10% of $5? 50 cents. So that's not enough. That's not right. So they give me $5, I'd give $1 back. $1 makes sense. So give $1 back. When I started teaching, I got $6,600 a year. I gave $1,000. When my pay went up, I still gave $1,000. When my salary hit $10,000 a year, I gave $2,000. Listen, you can't outgive God. I'm not a great, wonderful, noble person. It just makes sense, doesn't it? Besides the money that I'm getting for doing this job, look at everything else God's giving me for free. If you added all that stuff up and gave 10% of that, yeah, it would be more than 10%. And that's why in the Hebrew law, 10% was the tithe, but you also gave a free will offering, you gave a temple tax, and so forth and so forth. And required was 28% of your income, not 10. And I believe in tithing, as people call it, but tithing isn't in the New Testament, a whole different thing. We're to give a free will offering of the heart of love. How much do you love God? I would have nothing if it weren't for him, so how can I ever pay it back? Give what you can, all right? Thine enemies are in the midst of thy congregation. They set their incense. They are destroying what God's people built. Verse 5, a man was famous according as he had lifted up his axe upon the thick trees. He's talking about what God's people had done. And specifically here, you could take this, it doesn't have to be, but you could say, Solomon, though he may not have necessarily himself cut down the tree, David and Solomon got the trees cut and all the stuff there and put the temple up, right? And the people rejoiced and they celebrated. They had the temple. But now, those thick trees that were cut down, they're broken. The carved works thereof are destroyed at one time, at once. And look up the definition of at once in the Hebrew there. At once, with axes and hammers. These guys are coming in and they're destroying things. Now, just as a side note on that, should we ourselves have and instruct and help others to understand that the buildings and property should be taken care of? It just makes sense. What's our testimony to the community if our property looks deserted? People come in to visit and the toilets are plugged up and there's dirt on the floor. Can't have that. So people come in and they're destroying stuff. Don't let that happen. The third subpoint, they're really, Lord, they're attacking you. I spelled attacking wrong. I can't hardly see this, but it looks like I spelled it wrong. Did I? There's no K in attacking. Attack king. Okay, I spelled it wrong. They're really attacking you. Lord, when they come in here, look, they have cast fire into your sanctuary. They have defiled by casting down the dwelling place of thy name to the ground. They're attacking you. You also notice in your handout the words that are in italics and not bold. They're words that are supplied so we get the context of what's going on. Okay, they're not. Otherwise, if you had bold printed them, it would be a transliteration, not a translation. So understand that they have defiled the dwelling place. Well, how? By casting down. They just talked about that in verse 6. With the axe and the hammer, they were knocking them down. Verse 8, they said in their hearts, what's their heart's purpose? What's their goal? Let us destroy them together. They have burned up all the synagogues of God in the land. They're going from place to place just trying to get rid of you. Now in America, we haven't come to that point yet, but more and more and more, it's difficult to have free exercise of religion. Last night at the State of the Union address, President Trump made mention of, I forget whether he said he's going to sign a fiat or try to get the Congress to pass the amendment or whatever it was, but he let people pray in school. We need to have that back in our school. Many of our founding fathers said, in essence, and you can go back and look them all up if you want. If you want, you can come see me and I'll get you the books and you can look them up. But they basically said, government without God won't last. You've got to have, people have to have a God-fearing religious frame of mind in order for government to last. Not just a religious, generic religious mindset. No, a God-fearing, Bible-based religious attitude in their heart and mind, or the government will fall. Okay? So I'm pleased that President Trump said he wants to have that. I don't know how far it'll go or what it'll do, but I hope it gets through there. They said in their hearts, let's destroy them. They've burned up all the synagogues. Point D, Asaph proclaimed his desperation. Because of what's going on, this is what he says. We have no spiritual guidance. We see not our signs. There is no more any prophet, neither is there among us any that knoweth how long it's going to last. When's it going to stop? We have no spiritual guidance. Let me tell you this right now. Here in 2020, February of 2020, if you're experiencing a hard time in your life, there's a God in heaven who will get you through it. The night may seem long. The trial may seem hard, and it is. Now, the thing is, can I appreciate what you're going through and how you feel about it? I can see it and try to empathize, but I can't know the details about it, nor can you know what I'm going through. But we can encourage each other and say, listen, God's still on the throne. God will get us through this. Let's trust God. Let's not worry about the situation, the circumstances, the problems, the difficulties. No, I am a child of the King, and He will take care of me. Man. But Asaph said, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. God, will you help me with this? I see not the sign. I'm looking for our ensign. I don't see it. Second thing he says, we have no hope of deliverance. It doesn't look like this is ever going to end. I don't know. Verse 10, O God, how long shall the adversary reproach? Shall the enemy blaspheme thy name continuously, unendingly, perpetually, forever? Now, it's a rhetorical question in one sense, because is God ever going to let somebody blaspheme him forever? No, there's going to be an accounting day. But let's just say, just for sake of the illustration here, let's say that the rapture and the bema and the millennial kingdom and the tribulation and all that kind of stuff, let's say we knew for sure it was going to happen 2,000 years from today. Will you be alive then? So the crud you're having to live with right now, are you going to have to live with it for the rest of your life till you die? Does that mean God's not going to take care of it? Now, pay attention to this. This is very important. When I was growing up especially, and most of you here are, I think, in the same boat, whether you were a Christian or unsaved, the idea that the Bible talks about and explains sometimes was misrepresented to us to a point. Saved or unsaved, one way or the other, at one place or the other, you're going to have to meet with God and give an account. Is that correct? Yeah, it is. And so the unsaved, they're going to be at the great white throne judgment and end up in hell. The saved, they're going to go before God and have to give, and every word will be there, and we'll watch the videotape of our life, and how fearful that is. Stop for a second. Wait. When the Bible talks about the bema, what's it say? Doesn't say the books are open. That's the great white throne. What happens at the bema? It's the award ceremony. Now, again, illustration, it's human, it's the best thing to be. You're at the Oscars and you are nominated as the best actor or actress. And you don't win. Yeah, I was still there. I got nominated. It wasn't bad. I get to go to the afterglow party. There's nothing bad about it. God says, the bema is where I say, well done. Now, not for you, I'm sorry. But the focus of the bema is not where God stands over us with a club and says, oh, when you were 7, you stole a cookie. It's not what the bema is about. The bema is about the reward. And then God says, in essence, not in these words directly, but implies it in various places, because that's what it's about. Earn your reward. I'm telling you. You earn rewards, and that's where I want to give them. So earn them. Let it be said, well done, good and faithful servant. That's up to you. You can know that you're doing the will of God, and you can know if you're not doing the will of God. And the will of God being done in your life has nothing to do with how easy or rough life is. Was Peter a good Christian, you think? Was Paul a good Christian, do you think? James, do you think? They were all martyred. Was Stephen a good Christian? He was martyred. So don't think that my circumstances and situations of life is the evidence of whether I'm doing the will of God. Am I every day surrendering to what God wants me to do for today? It has nothing to do with a flat tire or getting sick or anything else. Jesus himself addressed this. He was asked, well, those people, I forget the name of the city, the tower fell over and killed them. What was it that they did? Jesus said, nothing. Towers fall over. Don't be standing underneath one. But now here's the question. Here's the statement. What are you going to do about serving God today? Don't worry about trying to figure out why the tower fell over and why somebody died and somebody didn't. You're alive right now. You're a born-again Christian right now. You're going to be all the rest of your life and into eternity. Okay, so what are you doing to serve your master? Stop trying to find out, am I going to be underneath the falling tower? Towers fall, motorcycles wreck, boats sink. So, don't let that be the thing that guides your actions and attitudes of life. He says, I don't know how long. Lord, it doesn't look like you're paying much attention to this. Verse 11 goes on in point 3 of Asaph's proclamation of desperation. I don't know why it's like this, but I do know I'll trust you to fix it. Boy, there you go. I've put my case forward. I don't know why I'm where I am. I don't know why things are happening like they are. I don't see anything coming in. I don't see any relief. But if anything can ever be done, you can do it. I'll rest on that. I'll rest on God. Because if it's ever going to get fixed, God's going to be the one who fixes it. Why do you withdraw thy hand, even thy right hand? Then he asks, pluck it out. Don't withdraw it. Pluck it out of your bosom. Don't put it in your pocket. Reach out to me. You're my only hope. He then goes on. Asaph explains why he trusts in God. God is in charge. He's always been in control, and he's the only hope I have. For God is my king of old, working salvation in the midst of the earth. God delivered in the past, and he'll do it again. Verse 13 says, Thou didst divide the sea by thy strength. Thou breakest the heads of the dragons in the waters. Thou breakest the heads of the leviathans in pieces, and givest them to be meat for the people inhabiting the wilderness. Thou didst cleave the fountain and the flood. Thou driest up the mighty rivers. All the wonderful, marvelous, wow things that have ever gone on, you did them. And he's talking about things that happened with the people of Israel from the time they left Egypt till the present, in his case. And we can go into the Leviathan he's talking about and all that stuff, but we won't do that right now. But the permanent rivers, the mighty rivers, it's the word permanent. It's not the wadi. The wadi is something that's only got water in it when it rains. But the permanent, the Nile, the Jordan, they always have water in them. You dry them up. So you can never say, well, yeah, God dried up the mud puddle. No, he dried up the Nile River. He dried up the Jordan River. Okay? God made it. He can do with it what he wants. Now think of that. In verse 16, Asaph says, the day is yours, the night is yours. You prepared the light and the sun. Notice they're different. Get into that some other day. Thou hast set all the borders of the earth. Thou hast made the summer and the winter. You made them. You own them. They're under your control. Then he goes on, his fourth point, I know God will protect those that honor him. Remember, he says in verse 18, remember this, the enemy has reproached, O Lord, and the foolish people have blasphemed your name. The adversary, the hater, and the foolish people, the ones who says there is no God, they're the ones who are blaspheming, but God will deliver us for his name's sake. O deliver not the soul of thy turtle dove unto the multitude of the wicked. Forget not the congregation of the poor forever. Lord, remember us. Don't deliver us into the hand of the wicked. And the word there, turtle dove, is a term of endearment. It would be like us today saying honey to somebody, or you're my sugar bear, or whatever you say to your husband or wife, you know. My wife and I call each other all kinds of weird names, you know. It's just a pet name for me, you know, Godzilla, whatever. But turtle dove is a term. There is a turtle dove. It's a dove with a ring on its neck. But it's also, the turtle is, we're tender in your sight. We're feeble in your sight. We're weak in your sight. You love us. You take care of us. We're your like your pet that you really love. Don't deliver us to the wicked one. Don't forget us. All right? He goes on, his sixth thing that he remembers. God made a promise and God will keep it. Listen, did God say about his children, I'll never leave you, I will never forsake you? Did God say, I know how to punish the wicked, I know how to preserve the righteous? Yes, he did. Did God say, if you serve me, I'll bless you? Yes, he did. Did God say, if you honor me faithfully, I'll reward you at the Bema? Yes, he did. Will God keep his promise? All right. Then stop worrying about the flat tire or the bad health or the whatever it is. God is in charge. He made a promise and he will keep it. Look what it says here in verse 20 through 23 and we'll be done. Have respect unto thy covenant. I like that. God, you made a promise. I'm holding you to it. For the dark places of the earth are full of the habitations of cruelty. Let not the oppressed return ashamed. He's talking about the people of Israel. They're being oppressed. Don't let them go home ashamed. Let the poor and the needy praise thy name. Arise, O God, plead thine own cause. Remember how the foolish man reproaches thee every day. Forget not the voice of thine enemies, the tumult of those that rise up against thee, increasing continually. Lord, I'm leaving this with you. I know you'll take care of it, because you will take care of the people who love and fear and honor you. So the question then is, will you honor God? And let the world and everything about it do whatever it's going to do. But honor God. Again, several examples. Joseph is in prison, but he's always doing right, honoring God. Paul is in prison, but he's trying to serve God. Can we do that? Can we just honor God? Trust God, rely on God, lean on God. That's what you get from Psalm 74. All right, let's pray. Dear Lord God, we thank you for your love for us. Help us now to serve and honor you. Help us, Lord, to understand the Bible, understand what you have to say to us, apply it in our lives, and serve you with it and through it. Help us, Lord, to be the kind of Christians we ought to be, the kind of fathers, mothers, disciples. Help us, Lord, to work in the church as you would have us to work. Help us to do what you want us to do in every position, every place. Help us, Lord, to honor you, that we might hear, well done, good and faithful servant. For its name of Christ I pray. Amen. All right, Floyd's got their offering plate back there. As you leave, give what you can, and there will be a quick practice on the guitars. You are dismissed.